Um, who was the bunch that came out to the stage next? There was 40 people in cowboy hats going, oh, to start the Seth music. Who was that? The Morbid Tabernacle Choir or the Morbid Tabernacle?
The Morbid.
Choir?
Yes, I don't know.
So here comes Seth entrance. Seth freaking Rollins. Now that freaking is just installed in the middle of his name. The announcers can't just say one. They have to say all three. Seth freaking Rollins.
The commentators say it nonstop throughout the match.
Yeah.
I understand you want to say the guy's whole name, Seth Rollins. You don't want to just say Seth or Rollins. But to have to say the whole thing, Seth freaking Rollins, every single time you mention him is ridiculous.
Well, it's actually when you have to say a guy's full name, even if he doesn't have freaking in the middle all the time, it's ridiculous because you've established, and I'm sure I've heard football announcers call the football players by their last name when they're in the middle of a play.
When I did commentary for Dennis once years ago, Dennis Carluzzo, for those wondering, I won't say who because he was a nice enough guy, but I did commentary with someone, and every single time he handed it over to me or said something to me, it was Brian Last. Hey, Brian Last, what do you think of this power slam there, Brian Last? And I didn't have the guts to say, or I didn't have the heart to say, please don't do that. But
heart, guts, spleen, kidneys. So anyway, Seth comes out, the feathered robe. He's swimming down the aisle. Did you see he was doing the breaststroke, I think, at one point. And there was a sign in the crowd, all roads, RHODES, all roads lead to Seth, which I thought was witty. So then the time, as they say, has come. Music drops, dramatic pause, milking, more milking, pyro, blackout, wide shot. What did the voice say that they played in the arena right before the music hit? I heard his voice say something. I could not tell what the something was.
I don't know either. I thought maybe he said something about WrestleMania. And I thought it was Cody, but I wasn't even certain of that because I couldn't tell.
I think it's Cody's voice, and they played something over the PA right as the music was to start. He was making some type of statement. The people in the crowd reacted to it, but I went back, turned the volume up, couldn't understand it on the broadcast. So that may have been a clue of what, as Finkel would say, his demeanor is going to be or something, whatever pithy statement he made, but I couldn't hear it. So the music starts. It's Cody's music. Cody apparently owns his music. And of course, Vince doesn't like to pay rights or use any music that doesn't come from in-house. And he makes the periodic exception for Punk in that contract thing that time, for Cult of Personality, for Ronda Rousey, Bad Reputation. He won't do it often. I've heard from his own lips, we don't pay for music, pal. But in this case, Cody has to own it, and he was able to bring his AEW music over to the WWE, and you know Vince had to love that. So that probably came as part of the package. I don't think Vince is paying for it. But when's the last time you heard the same guy's music in two different promotions of this? I mean, yes.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
When?
Jeff Hardy.
Oh, shit, that's theirs too, isn't it? Well, then there you go. What does Tony Khan have a music lawyer that should be protecting him from all these things?
Tony Khan is licensed music. The Jungle Boy theme song is Baltimora.
Baltimora, not Baltimora.
Excuse me. Either way, he sucked.
It's Bananarama is who you're thinking.
Bananarama were good. Also, he has the Pixies for Orange Cassidy.
Well, yes, I'm not saying he won't license it, but the thing is, he's letting the guys use their own music, not trademarking it, and then they can be free to fly away and use their own music at other companies.
And by the way, I'm happy about that because I actually think Cody coming out to that music helped set the tone. It helped make the statement, actually.
Oh, it was huge. Yes. Cody Rhodes looked more like a big-time star and a major main event money ball player on this entrance and in this match than he ever has before. And yes, the music was part of it because it was instantly recognizable, and to people it added to their absorption of the whole thing. But again, Tony's playing this shit on his television show, and suddenly not only does one of his EVPs leave, but he can take his music with him and everything. I mean, they've just wiped their feet on poor old Tony's face this week. So, but anyway, the American Nightmare rose through the stage. It's the same thing, but it's a huge crowd, and it's a new coat of paint, and it's in a different environment. Remember, we talked about this. Even Kevin Nash, Diesel, was the lowest drawing WWF champion in WWF history up to that point in time, 1995. He goes to WCW. It's a new environment, and they think it's part of an invasion, and he's one of the biggest stars in the business.
You know, another big thing I think that was important, Cody came out there, popped through the stage, got his pop, started walking to the ring. No turning around and looking for Arn Anderson. No Brandy, no Dustin, no one. And I think that was important too, because Cody, on his own going to the ring, that also, if all of a sudden there was someone else by his side, it would have changed it.
Yeah, because that's when the AEW worm started to turn, when it became constant with these entourages and these processions and these multiple corner people, and everybody in my family and immediate social circle of friends is all going to come to the ring with me, and now with Brandy. All that stuff is what started the ball rolling on people not particularly giving a fuck about Cody, or giving a fuck about him in the wrong way. So now it's just him. He had the crowd. He's over. Huge pop. Big walk down. The announcer saying from undesirable to undeniable. This may have been his ulterior motive, his plan for the last 6 years. I'm going to go somewhere and make Vince McMahon sorry that he didn't see what I see in me, and he didn't put the title on my Daddy in the Garden.
I think that's a large part of it.
And so, and now, thank you for, he took a little detour, but I mean, because let's face it, maybe they would have placated old Twinkle Toes, old Kenny. The WWE would have given him a contract and some money, and they would have put him on the roster, and personality-wise, if nothing else, even if you think that Kenny Olivier is the world's greatest living wrestling artist, the WWE, they might have used him in the ring, and he might have been able to do some shit in the ring, but the person that he is, and the personality that he is, and the personality you need to have to get to the top in the WWE, I guarantee you either Vince himself or somebody close underneath him would have run that son of a bitch off in about 6 months. They would have washed their hands of him as a person who didn't get what the fuck was going on around him in the wrestling business. And the Hardley Boys, I'm sure they would have been willing to give them money too if they made an offer to them, as they claim, when AEW was still in the imagining stages and the formative stages, just to get them to not go there. But do you think that in any way, shape, or form, either one of the Cucamonga kids would have been featured on top or allowed to do any of the horse shit that they do working for Vince McMahon?
I don't want to go too off topic here, but I will say I did have the thought watching this, and it may have been around this match, now that I think of it, that the thought popped into my head, that I've been saying how Kenny Omega feels more like the world champion AEW than Adam Page ever has. And he did. And he does. Yeah. And I don't think he would have fit into this at all. Cody, you see him in there with Rollins right away. It was a different Cody than we saw in the entire run of AEW, I felt. And I don't know if Omega fits into this system. And he would probably say, he doesn't fit into the system. Yeah. I don't think he fits into that system at all.
See, that's the point I was making before we talk about the match, is just that of all the executive vice presidents, the former members of the Bullet Club or whatever, Cody is the only one that could have hopped companies and actually done this, be on top, be in a main event situation, and deliver and get along with and work in the WWE. Harpo, old Twinkle Toes, old Kenny, he couldn't do it because one side or the other would have been in a mental meltdown over what the fuck's the matter with this fucking guy from the office side, or Kenny may very well have braided his hair and wrapped it around his neck from having to deal with them because he's off on his own planet. So that would not have been a fit personality-wise. And with the Bucks, no, they would never be featured on top in this company or be allowed to do any of that shit. And they knew it. That's why they didn't take the offer, and that's why they didn't go. And they knew the offer was just to keep them from being involved in a startup company, and that was never going to be offered again. But, no, Cody's the only one of that group that could actually come here and do this and be a star. And that's what he did. And that's why the others are probably pissed at him now. And that's why the Cucamonga kids are changing their Twitter profiles to knock Cody. What do the kids call it? Passive aggressive. When you're too much of a pussy to just come out and tell somebody what you think of them, and you do it on the sly and behind people's back, that's called passive aggressive. That's what now the Hardley boys are doing to Cody because he's in the big time and they're not. And people are starting to see through them.
Well, that's their game too. Well, I don't want to go too off, but Shawn Michaels was a to-your-face dickhead. With them, it's a passive aggressive shit. There's enough guys who have experienced it and have talked about it, maybe not openly, that it's a real thing, but anyway, another topic for another time.
All righty, so this match, two smooth veterans doing wrestling, back and forth. They did the vertical suplex spot over the top rope. I mentioned this. Somebody did it 3 or 4 weeks ago. I said, well, they did it safely. This one may have been even better, and Cody took the worst of the bump. He landed hard. Cody had something to prove here, and he was proving it. Seth started the heat when Cody came off the top. Seth drop kicked him in the ribs, and then, welcome back to the big leagues, bitch. And I'm sure a bunch of the trampoline cowboys over on the other side of the fence were just, oh, you no good son of a bitch. How dare you say that? A little heat. Cody came back, clothesline over the top, a dive, and he hit Seth, and Seth took a backflip over the announce desk. One bobble. Cody did that turnaround crossbody off the top, and he was headed downwards. Almost missed it, but he saved it. They both saved it. And then he came off the stairs for a Hurricane Rana, and Seth almost lost him, but he caught him, and he saved it and buckle bombed him into the rail. And it was a great match. They had more heat and more comeback and false finishes. And finally, Cody, the big comeback at the end, Crossroads, 2 count, big pop. And they've always got to go to the buckle. Everybody's got to go to the buckle. He spent a while there, but Seth ended up giving Cody an inverted or upside down. For those of you who don't understand inverted, I don't understand why you'd go for this move. Superplex off the top rope, which it looks and is even more dangerous than a regular superplex, but it looked beautiful. But then they didn't let it register because it popped right back up into that Falcon Arrow bullshit. Have I mentioned that that's one of my pet peeves? I've told you about Vince's. One of mine is a superplex off the top rope where both guys immediately come right back up and do another fucking smaller suplex. But nevertheless, more back and forth. They couldn't get the double bridge in at that point. They were deep in the match, but then Cody hit the Cody cutter off the top rope, and that was a pretty thing. They were right on with most everything. Boom, 2 count. Then Rollins hits a pedigree 2 count. Big pop on that one because they thought that might be it. And they did a nice 1-2 exchange with some body English and language to it. Seth went to the ribs, and then he did those face kicks where he grabs the guy. What do they call them? Kawada kicks? Is that from...
from Toshiaki Kawada.
Toshiaki Kawada. Well, I bet you he was stiff too, but these didn't look too... Cody, at the end of the goddamn match, he had fucking not only just welts on his face, but it looked like boot prints on his forehead. So they were laying it in here. Cody hit the crossroads out of nowhere, then a second one, then did the dusty jabs and the flip-flop and fly bionic elbow, and the place went nuts. Nice little nostalgia business there. Hits the third crossroads, 1, 2, 3, huge pop. This audience, are they loving Cody because it's Cody and the presentation? Or are they loving Cody because now they get to fucking crow about taking somebody away from because all the AEW fans now and all the WWE fans are circling the wagons. One hates the other. They both say that the other company's matches are shit. Both of them usually are right. But now is this going to be a deal where unless they fuck up the booking some kind of way or Cody brings back his entourage, Cody's already a made man's going to be over just because they get to lord one over the AEW folks? What do you think?
I don't think that will have too much to do with it because I think such a small segment of the WWE audience is tribal like that. There's an element of it, of course.
Well, but everybody,
it's a bigger element
tribal.
Of the
it's
AEW
WrestleMania.
audience.
So these are the most tribalistic people. This ain't just Des Moines on a Friday.
These are the people that are flying to a place so they could pop nonstop. And the plan is for Cody.
I know a couple places like that. You don't need to fly to them. Just pay the hourly rate. You could pop nonstop.
The reaction to Cody was fantastic. It's all he could have hoped for, and they have him slotted to be a babyface on Raw, from what I hear. But when you get away from that traveling audience, that'll be the test. How do the fans... I think the question may be more, how do the fans in WWE take to him as a main eventer than it is, will they continue the booing? The only fans who would be doing that are fans who are watching AEW. So it'll be interesting to see how the crowd reacts after tonight as we're recording, after Raw. If the fans tonight start booing him and setting that precedent and the other fans see it, you don't know. If Vince sees that, you don't know. But Cody got off to a fantastic start. He came across like a star.
Yeah.
Hey, let me put Seth Rollins over because I hate his gimmick more than anything in the world.
Great match, though.
Great match. And when he stood there and he didn't know who his opponent was, and he got serious for a second, and you looked at his face, and he was concerned, I believed in that guy. I kind of wanted to see what was going to happen. I don't need the fake Joker laugh all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the thing that I've liked about him since I met him in Ring of Honor. He can work his ass off, and for a guy that tall, he can do a lot of incredible things, and he can have great matches, and then just every time they have him speak or portray him in these fashions, it's counterproductive. But yes, Cody, back welted, face welted, beat up, but he got the ovation. He's over with the people, and they're still in Dallas tonight for Raw. They're still with the WrestleMania audience and ambiance.
I hope they get it right.
And they're in Texas, and the Rhodes family in Texas. You're right. So I'm thinking it'll be a week or two until they go to a normal place in the United States of America, if there are any anymore, where just a regular crowd of people come to see a wrestling match. Wait a minute, what am I saying now? Regular people don't even watch wrestling anymore. But we'll see what happens when it's not the most devoted of the devoted, and it's just a regular town and a regular WWE crowd, and we'll see, how they respond to him then.
And it's important to note the fans in AEW wanted to respond to him that way, and initially they did. He wasn't just some WWE guy. He was a guy that aligned himself with the Bucks and became part of their movement and got him there. And early on they did. The problem was when all of a sudden weird things would get introduced into programs, or weird programs, or promos that went nowhere, or Cody would show up and then disappear for weeks. I have to think all of that's going to be out the window now. So the biggest disappointment of Cody in AEW on camera is the way he was used.
Yeah.
Because it never made sense, and it was disjointed. And at a minimum, the disjointedness should probably go away now, because he's going to be on that show every week.
Well, and plus, the WWE machine, the producers, the people in various places will keep him from going out and sounding so grandiose and glorious about himself that he gets that kind of heat.
I was going to say, I saw an interview he did backstage after the match, like right after the match. They sent a girl up to him right away with a microphone. He's covered in sweat and blood and whatever else. He looked like he was in a fight. It looked great.
Yeah.
And it was the best interview I've ever heard him do. And it wasn't in front of the fans and it wasn't that kind of interview, but he sounded so real and so genuine. And I thought back to the last interview we heard him do in AEW on TV, that weird, so what do you guys want to talk about? And I didn't get the contract I wanted. Like, it got to a weird point in AEW. And this is a chance to kind of start anew. And when I saw that interview backstage, you see that and you're like, I like this guy. I want this guy to succeed here. So it'll be interesting to see how long they can ride the goodwill.
Dusty was the son of a plumber. Dusty Rhodes, he could touch common average people. He could talk to them. They would get behind him. He looked like one of them. Even in the 70s when he was wearing the furry robes and the psychedelic outfits and everything, it's always Dusty, whether he was the cowboy and the boots and the jeans or the psychedelic stuff in the 70s or whatever. At the root of it, Dusty Rhodes was a fucking redneck that came into money. And everybody could identify with that, and they liked him for it. And they got with him, and that's the way he came off. And he didn't, like I said a couple shows ago, if he did use a word with 4 or 5 syllables, it was one that he had made up. And you knew what he meant, even though it wasn't a real word, but it sounded, But Cody has been the rich grandson of a plumber. He's got an entourage. He had a bus. He had a reality TV show, and he's using the real big words in their real context. And he got too big for his britches, as Mama Cornette used to say, in the fans' eyes, I think, it was like he was dabbling in wrestling while he was a reality show star and an international celebrity and man of mystery. And that took him out of the place that Dusty had for so long in people's minds, which was this fucking guy that he's done his own thing and he don't care. He's comfortable with himself. He's a big fat slob and he kicks ass and we love him. It wasn't the same. But anyway, we shall see if they keep in the WWE, if they keep Cody away from coming off like Richie Rich instead of the grandson of a plumber.
Of course, if Cody and Brandy think back to previous times and they want to commemorate those times, maybe you don't want to get some photography. Maybe you don't want to, I guess it would really be just photography. Maybe you just don't want to do that. You want to get an oil painting.
Maybe you don't want to sketch yourself.
Oh, there's that.
Maybe you don't want to, use your face to cut some gorilla cookies. Maybe you just want an oil painting. No, I would think that with all the pictures that the private photographers, the personal photographers have taken of Cody and Brandy and their extended family and entourage, that they've got plenty of photographs that they can send to the folks at Paint Your Life, and they will get a giant, hand-painted, custom-made portrait that they can hang on their wall, and they can relive those memories forever of when they were all together on the nightmare bus that Tony Khan got for them. What a great idea. If you've got a family member or a friend or even someone you don't care about, but you want to make them feel bad, get them something nice and they'll feel guilty. Whatever it is, birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, paintyourlife.com can take any photograph or combination of photographs, and their team of world-class artists will turn them into a custom-made, hand-painted portrait. You can get the picture in as little as 2 weeks, and they will work off of anything: yourself, your kids, family, special place, lost loved one, cherished pet, even an action shot. Whatever action you may be getting, we're not going to be the ones to judge. You send that picture to Paint Your Life, and after they make multiple copies to laugh at you in their warehouse.
They don't do that. Don't even say that. They do not do that.
They do not do that. You will not know a thing about them doing that. They will.
No, they don't do that. You will not.
They don't do it. That's
you won't know a thing about the thing they're not going to do.
They won't. You won't know a thing about the thing they're not doing. And there's no risk on this. At paintyourlife.com, if you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded, guaranteed. And right now, as a limited time offer, you can get 20% off your painting, 20% and free shipping if you text the word DRIVE, D-R-I-V-E, to 64,000. That's DRIVE to 64000, 20% off. As a matter of fact, if you have all of your family members painted in the nude instead of clothing, you can get 25% off.
No, you can't.
Because they don't have to go through all that extra detail.
There is no extended nudity discount. Don't tell people that.
Well, that's different than the information I got. But wait a minute. Maybe I'm thinking of another company.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what information you have. What information do you have?
Well, I had information that this one, if you go in naked, you get in free. But that may have been a club rather than... There was a door charge if you were clothed. But, and fortunately, I got 15% off because I had a handcuff key in my pocket. But anyway, at paintyourlife.com, as I mentioned, there's no risk. Everything is done covered and safe. And you'll get your painting and you'll love it. And you'll hang it on the wall and you'll hug it and squeeze it and call it George forever. Paintyourlife.com. Celebrate the moments that matter most. Message and data rates may apply. Terms apply. Available at paintyourlife.com/terms. Keep your clothes on, cowboy.
You know, you brought up the bus before, and Cody obviously was at WrestleMania in a bus. He had his family there, had some other people there. And I believe I heard, I got to go back and check, it's been a long weekend, that in the post-Mania media scrum, now they're doing it, he said that Vince actually gave him a bus as one of the things in the negotiation. And it made me laugh because if that's true, he wanted Punk money from Tony, but he wanted Punk perks from Vince. Because wasn't Punk the one who got a bus years ago?
I don't know. I didn't know that if Punk was a bus fan or not.
I think Punk... I could be wrong.
No. Brock got a bus.
I think Punk got a bus, too.
No, Brock got a plane.
Vince gave Brock a plane?
Well, no, Brock got a plane.
Oh, that's on his own. What you do on your own, it's your own business.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to match the star to their method of conveyance or transportation. So Brock had a plane. Maybe Punk got a bus. Why? I don't want the goddamn bus. I want a nice SUV is fine because then you can park anywhere. You can go through the drive-thrus. I don't want to sleep on the goddamn thing anyway, but Cody must like buses.
I think he just wants to have his family with him.
Boy, that's another weird thing. What? Isn't the whole idea of getting in the wrestling business to get away from your family?
Well, he has a family now, and they were...
Well, most of the guys in the wrestling business had a family they were anxious to get away from. For heaven's sake. It's nice he got a bus.
I guess so. Well...
And Luger got a bus. You see where that went?
Hopefully Vince stays in love with Cody a little bit longer than Lex, but...
You know what? Lex was not allowed to actually take the bus anywhere he wanted to go. He had to get on the bus and drive the bus, or not drive the bus, ride on the bus all across the country.
The bus.
Well, he might have snuck up there once or twice, but he had to ride all across the country to do those promotional appearances, and he was about as comfortable as a fucking man with his ass on fire in the depths of hell on that bus.